When you look at her from the outside, you'd think she's someone who has lost faith in everything. That faith flickers in her eyes like a fading shadow hidden deep within. Or perhaps it's gone for good. Hope? Only a ghost of it remains. Her name is Alice, 35 years old, and now she has no home, no supportive shoulder, not even a phone to hear a warm "how are you doing?" Not long ago, she strode confidently up the career ladder, head held high, dreaming of starting her own business and achieving great things. And now she sits on a small suitcase in the waiting area of a train station, sifting through the fragmented pieces of a past life, utterly unsure where to turn next. The evening train, the cool wind slipping between the pillars, and she silently gazes into the void. Despair has etched itself into every gesture, so much so that no one dares to approach and ask if she's all right. Deep down, Alice would confess, everything is wrong, absolutely wrong, absolutely wrong. The city seemed to have cast her aside. Where can you go without money, without connections, without friends, who vanished the moment they learned you no longer held a high position? With that position gone, people simply drifted away. It happens, doesn't it? But why does it hurt so damn much? She wasn't always like this. Once upon a time, Alice laughed with a bright, ringing laugh, instilling confidence in her friends. No matter what happens, we'll get through it together. Everyone knew her as an optimist, someone who marched toward her goals, overcoming obstacles with a kind of wild persistence. But in recent months, everything unraveled as if someone had flipped a switch, plunging her life into full-on collapse. First, she was laid off from the company where she had devoted 10 years of her soul. Then it emerged that her ex-husband had stopped paying child support, and her court case languished. Typical bureaucratic delays, endless queues, postponements, and rescheduled hearings. To make matters worse, a long-dormant issue surfaced when her sister, the owner of their shared apartment, declared she was selling the place and demanded Alice leave immediately. "Where on earth am I supposed to go?" "Alice, there's nothing I can do," her sister's trembling voice replied, as if burdened with guilt yet forced to move forward. "I need the money, and I can't wait any longer." Friends? Only Laura remained, but even she was juggling a toddler and was out of work, barely managing to put food on the table herself. Others either pretended not to hear or flatly admitted they couldn't help. And so, surrounded by boxes and the crushing realization that everything was over, a pit of hopelessness that seemed bottomless, Alice wondered, is it really possible to hit rock bottom, or is there still a chance? Gathering her meager belongings into a small suitcase, she left for the train station anywhere, as long as she wasn't forced to face the sneers and pitying glances of those who would whisper, "I'm sorry, but you really have nothing," or worse, "See what life did to you." She recalled her earliest, most earnest ambition, the dream of becoming an interior designer. How long ago that was. Back then, she barely even thought about it. Her youthful dreams had been pushed aside by the demands of career and family. But by God, as soon as she closed her eyes, vivid images returned. Art school, exhibitions, sketches, drawings of future, breathtaking spaces. Back then, she burned with that idea, only to lose it amid the whirlwind of responsibilities and problems. Now it felt as if someone had doused her in icy water. This unexpected freedom, albeit a grim, suffocating kind, sparked a new awareness. Perhaps all of this was a sign. Who the heck knows, but maybe now was the moment to reclaim those forgotten designs. The train station grew quiet. Only the sporadic announcements of arriving and departing trains disturbed the stillness. Inside, however, a storm raged, and it was precisely in that seemingly hopeless situation that a thought struck Alice. Enough with wallowing? Have I really hit the bottom? Taking a deep breath, she resolved. She had to move. In her pocket lay a few $1,000s, enough to scrape by for a couple of very modest weeks. Suddenly she remembered the city's art school in a nearby town, where her old friend Deborah once worked, though they'd lost touch over the past 5 years. Rumor had it that at the school, a group of passionate enthusiasts ran educational projects and contests. Perhaps there was even a temporary position waiting for her there. "I'm going," she murmured softly, raising her eyes to the lofty arches of the station. "What do I have to lose?" Buying a ticket was a decisive act. The clack of the train's wheels whisked her away from the familiar streets toward a new city where no one knew her problems, and where no one would judge her past failures. After checking the address on a map, Alice arrived at the old school building. A cozy courtyard, gray walls, endless corridors, the scent of paint and slightly cracked plaster greeted her. Her heart tightened. It was as if she'd stepped back into her childhood. She hesitated at the door, her hand trembling on the doorbell. The door creaked open, revealing an elderly woman wrapped in a scarf and wearing a long plaid skirt. "Can I help you?" the woman asked. "I'm looking for Deborah," Alice replied, her voice catching slightly with emotion. "Adara? Oh, she's with the kids in class right now. Come on in." A strange sensation swept over her. Part of her wanted to run, yet another part urged her to stay. The classroom buzzed with the noise of voices and laughter. At one table, a young girl was showing her classmates how to add shadows to a drawing. The little girl, around 10, scrunched up her nose comically. "I just can't get it right." Then Deborah appeared, her eyes lighting up as she recognized her old friend. "Alice? Oh my, how many years! What brings you here?" How could she explain? Yet Alice decided to open up. As she spoke, a strange sense of relief washed over her. Deborah said nothing, but her eyes glistened. "You know, we don't have a paid position and the school is barely hanging on, but we're always in need of volunteers for exhibits and workshops. We're putting together a children's art festival. Maybe you could help out?" "Of course," Alice blurted, surprised by her own quick acceptance. Working without a steady paycheck was daunting, yet it offered a chance to do something genuine, something creative. It was like reclaiming that lost fragment of her soul that she had once sacrificed on the altar of practicality. Yet the financial side remained terrifying. Where would she live? How could she buy food? Deborah offered. "I have a small room in a boarding house. It's a bit dreary, but it's a roof over your head. You can stay there rent-free until you get back on your feet. We're friends, after all." "Thank you. I don't even know how to repay you." "Just keep helping here and don't give up. That's all the thanks I need." Soon her days filled with volunteer work. Mornings were spent organizing classes, preparing art supplies, cleaning brushes, and learning how to mold tiny sculptures out of papier-mâché with the kids. In the evenings, she stayed in the cramped room at the school, poring over old flyers and sketching designs for festival posters. The days passed, sometimes with gnawing hunger, sometimes with barely enough time to rest. Her nerves were always on edge, haunted by the fear that everything might collapse once again. But the children's pure, joyful energy was like medicine. Their unbridled laughter and innocent exclamations as they shouted, "Alice, look! I drew a cat, but it kinda looks like a tiger. Ha ha ha." These moments were a balm for her soul. With every passing day she felt herself thawing. One evening an unusual visitor arrived at the school, a tall man in his 40s, dressed in worn-out jeans and an old velvet jacket, as if stepped out of another era. He scrutinized the children's artwork, pausing long by each piece. "Who's that?" Alice whispered, approaching Deborah. "That's Michael, a former art teacher here who's now a successful artist. He recently moved back due to family reasons." "Really? So he's as famous as they say?" "Oh yes. Have you seen his painting, Through the Fire? It won a grand prize at a prestigious exhibition." Alice watched as Michael ruffled a young boy's hair while asking him about his drawing. Suddenly, he turned toward her. "And who might you be?" I'm Alice, a volunteer here." Great to have volunteers. I remember the old days when no one cared about art classes, he said with a warm smile. From that day on, their paths crossed more and more. Michael, it seemed, was hatching a new idea and needed assistance. He visited Deborah often to discuss plans for a grand exhibition of children's work, an event designed to capture the attention of local media and showcase raw talent. We need publicity. We need to show the city that our kids have something special, he gestured expansively, as if painting an invisible poster. It's a fantastic idea, but money is tight. We're always short on supplies like paint, Deborah sighed. Don't worry, I've got connections. Some sponsorships can be arranged, some things can even be bartered. And Alice, you'll help with the design, won't you? Me? Of course, I'll do my best. A warm glow filled Alice. Finally, someone recognized her skills and asked for her professional input. Her heart brimmed with hope, the feeling that her talent still had value. Days melted into nights as she tirelessly labored over layouts, perfecting every detail. Countless bright ideas burst forth, as if a long-dormant energy had finally exploded into life. For the first time in a long while, she savored the taste of living and forgot, at least momentarily, the nightmare of her former city. But life isn't all sunshine. A few weeks later, the first blow struck. An official letter from the court announced that her next hearing had been postponed indefinitely. That meant she'd have to wait several more months for any child support from her ex-husband. Soon after, her sister Beth sent a text. Listen, I sold the apartment. I transferred a small sum to your account. That's all I can do. You'll have to manage on your own now. The amount was laughably small, yet it was something. And then, trouble at the school surfaced. During the festival preparations, they discovered that an extra fee was demanded for renting the hall, and local officials were anything but cooperative. Just my luck, everything's falling apart all at once. Alice slumped onto a bench by the entrance, clutching a notebook filled with sketches. Am I doomed to bang my head against a wall again? Hey, why the pessimism? Michael joined her. Are you all right? I just don't know what's next. I have no steady income, debts piling up, and it seems like the festival might collapse. I've got an idea, but let's talk it over with Deborah first. Soon enough, the three of them gathered in a cramped teacher's lounge. Michael's plan was to transform the Children's Art Festival into a charitable project, to raise money through sponsorships and donations, using a portion of the funds to support the school and compensate its teachers. And what do I get out of it? Alice asked bitterly, dreading that her labor would once again go unrewarded. Alice, of course. No one's going to exploit your work. If it all goes well, you'll receive a modest honorarium, not much, but it's a start. Plus, we'll hold an exhibition featuring your designs. You still have those interior sketches, don't you? Yes, though they're still rough. That doesn't matter. The important thing is to begin. I'm sure there are people who'll love your style. Deborah's eyes shone with hope. As long as it works out. The following weeks became a whirlwind of meetings, phone calls, and negotiations. For the first time, Alice worked as an independent designer, crafting the festival's branding, its logo, and setting up the exhibition. Michael negotiated with sponsors, calling on his contacts in metropolitan galleries, while Deborah coordinated the administrative details. Night after night, they compiled lists of participants, invited experts, designers, and musicians, and scoured for a suitable venue. There were days when exhaustion overwhelmed her, as no one had canceled the volunteer work with the kids. Alice, aren't you burning out? Deborah would ask. No, on the contrary, I need all of this. It's like air to me. I need to feel that I'm creating something, that I'm useful. Her heart pounded with excitement. Though life remained precarious, a newfound purpose had been ignited. Then the day of the festival's opening finally arrived. The large, bright hall, miraculously provided by the city administration after much persuasion, was adorned with children's drawings, installations, and little sculptures. Soft, ambient lighting cast gentle pools of light on the exhibits, and soft music played in the background as visitors drifted from one display to another, discussing the art. Alice stood at the entrance, greeting guests and handing out programs. Dressed in a simple yet elegant dress, her hair loosely tied up, her eyes shone with nervous excitement and pride. Is it really all happening? Am I finally standing back up, if not soaring, at least firmly on my feet, she thought. Nearby, Michael strolled up and winked at her. Look at all these people, it's a success. But what if everything goes wrong? Come on, it's all going great. Look, the media's here, snapping photos, interviewing the kids. This is amazing, he exclaimed. Sure enough, reporters buzzed around with cameras, interviewing the young artists. How long did it take you to prepare this piece? Who inspired you? Do you feel looking at your own drawing? The scene was almost celebratory, and amidst all this festivity, Alice felt a deep connection. Her contribution, her reason for pride, was finally being recognized. At one point, the announcer declared that in the adjacent hall, an exhibition of local artists and designers, supporters of the festival, was opening. Alice didn't immediately realize that among those artists was her very own portfolio. "Ladies and gentlemen, please come and meet our local talents," the announcer's voice rang out. "Here, we showcase diverse styles, from classic drawing to cutting-edge design." Alice noticed as people moved into the next hall, pausing in admiration at the artworks. Then, before her very eyes, she spotted it. Her own folder of sketches displayed on a dedicated stand. "Are those your designs?" Michael asked quietly from behind. "Yes, but I feel so exposed. It's like laying my soul bare." That's exactly what a true exhibition should feel like. Let people see your vision, your dream. Don't be afraid of their opinions, Alice. Alice. She edged closer to listen to the comments. Two men in sharp suits examined her modern design sketches. Unconventional partition ideas, a play of colors and textures that transformed an urban apartment into an art space. "There's something fresh about this approach," one remarked, adjusting his tie. "It's as if the ordinary living space is reborn into something extraordinary." "True, though if the designer could refine a few details, it might be even better," agreed the other. Hearing this, Alice felt both joy and trepidation. She was being scrutinized, critiqued, yet noticed. They noticed her. Soon, a younger man approached, introducing himself as Kevin. "Alice, right? I saw your portfolio. Some of your ideas really struck me," he said, his tone earnest, as if fearing to overstep. "Maybe we could discuss a collaboration?" "Collaboration?" she echoed, hardly believing her ears. "Are you suggesting you want me to work with you?" "Absolutely. I'd love to see more of your work. Additional sketches, maybe a 3D rendering. I really think we could build something together." Alice stood there, struck as if by thunder. "Is this really happening? Right here? Right now?" At that moment, the celebration reached its zenith. Flashes from cameras, beaming children's faces. Deborah receiving thank you certificates. Michael playfully bantering with guests about his next painting. "When's the next masterpiece?" Then someone called out to Alice. "Miss, we have an interview with the local news channel. Could you share how you managed to pull off such an amazing festival?" Her heart raced as she stepped forward, facing the camera and microphone. "Well," she gulped, "it was really a team effort. The kids, the teachers, the artists, everyone contributed. I was just lucky to be part of it." "But you're the one who designed the event's look, and your work is featured here." "Yes," she smiled gently. "This has always been my dream, to return to creativity. I truly believe my best days are ahead." The festival wound down late into the night. Every ounce of energy, every surge of emotion had culminated in a success that none had anticipated. Crowds flocked, the local press raved in their reviews, and Alice even forged several promising business contacts. Back at Deborah's modest boarding house, Alice slumped onto an old sofa and gazed up at the ceiling. Inside her, a kaleidoscope of emotions swirled: joy, exhaustion, and a burning desire to press on. "How are you holding up?" Deborah asked as she entered with 2 steaming cups of tea. "I'm—" Alice trailed off, running a hand through her hair as tears of relief began to fall. "I'm okay, Deborah. For the first time in months, I truly believe everything will be all right." "Of course it will. Look how far you've come." Alice sipped her tea and murmured softly, "Thank you. Seriously, without you I would have sunk completely." "Oh, come on," Deborah waved a dismissive hand. "We're all in the same boat. It's wonderful that you're back." The next day the phone rang. It was Kevin from the design studio. "Alice, hey, I was thinking, we've got a project lined up. The client wants something special. How about we meet and discuss?" "Absolutely," her heart skipped a beat. "But I don't have professional 3D software yet." "No worries, our studio has everything you need. Just come by at 10 tomorrow." After hanging up, Alice stared at her phone screen. So something new is really beginning? Raced through her mind. The entire day was spent jotting down ideas, collecting inspiring images, all while marveling that just a month ago she had been sitting on that very platform, clutching her suitcase, lost and adrift. And now a project lay on the horizon, perhaps small, but undeniably her own, fueling her with a strength she hadn't felt in years. On the day of the meeting with Kevin, Alice stepped into the studio, an unfamiliar office space filled with computers, sample materials lining the shelves, people in sharp suits and coffee cups in hand. A tinge of fear crept in. What if she failed? But inside, a spark of determination burned fiercely. She recalled the thrill of working with the kids, the genuine belief Michael had placed in her, and she realized there's no turning back. "Alice, come in. I'll show you your workspace," Kevin greeted, leading her to a desk with a large monitor. "Everything here is designed for creativity, and by the way, if the client approves your design, your honorarium will be respectable." She smiled, thinking, the key is to do what your heart tells you and let the money be a byproduct, not the main goal. In the following weeks, Alice threw herself into her work. The client proved to be a tough critic, one day demanding a minimalist loft style, the next insisting on a grand, ornate, classic design. Yet, despite the stressful negotiations, Alice stood firm, defending her creative choices and learning to compromise. On the 3rd week of meetings, the client finally said, "All right, we'll go with your design. I like how it creates a sense of freedom and spaciousness. It's important for people to feel inspired when they walk in." That's exactly what I aimed for, an atmosphere of liberation. Leaving the meeting, she couldn't help but exclaim internally, "It's happening, damn it, it's really happening." At the same time, Alice continued to volunteer at the school. Deborah later informed her that the city officials, impressed by the festival's success, had allocated a small grant for repairs. Joy knew no bounds. Michael was already working on a new series of paintings, promising to feature part of the exhibition right at the school. "What a whirlwind of a year," Alice remarked one evening in the empty school corridor, speaking with Michael. "And this is just the beginning," he replied warmly, his eyes full of encouragement. "I truly believe everything will be just fine for you, Alice." She smiled, but a strange sensation stirred within her, perhaps something more than just friendship. Though still guarded after the wounds inflicted by her ex-husband, she couldn't deny the special warmth Michael offered. Before long, Alice received her first proper payment for a design project. The money wasn't astronomical, but it stood as proof that she was a professional, capable of earning a living by building a new reality. Without delay, she transferred a portion of her debt to Deborah, purchased a new laptop to streamline her design work from home, and even composed a heartfelt thank you message to her estranged sister, Tom's former partner, hoping for eventual reconciliation. "Thank you for being there during my darkest hours. Things are finally looking up, and I'm earning again. I hope one day we can truly make amends." As she sent that message, memories of a desperate phone call, a time when she had screamed into the receiver, "How could you kick me out?" surfaced. Now her gaze had softened. My sister had her own struggles. Perhaps she acted out of desperation too. That evening, returning to the boarding house, no longer a pitiful refuge, but rather a temporary stepping stone, Alice set her new laptop on the table and began drafting emails to potential clients. Ideas for revitalizing the school space danced in her mind. "Alice?" Deborah peeked in. "Maybe you should look for your own place now that you've started earning." "Probably. I'll save up a bit more and rent something soon, then we'll see." "Just don't abandon the school, okay?" Deborah added half-jokingly. "How could I ever? You all gave me a new lease on life." The moment finally came when Alice decided to call her ex-husband. Years of pent-up hurt and unresolved financial issues demanded closure. Preparing herself for a tense conversation, she dialed his number. "Alice, hi," his voice sounded surprised. "What's up? I need to know what's going on with the child support." "Well?" "I don't know. The court has postponed the hearing and I'm out of work myself." "I understand, but we did plan on raising our child together, didn't we? Even though our relationship fell apart, can't we at least handle this like adults?" He hesitated before replying. "All right. I'll try to pick up some extra work so I can send something." Alice exhaled deeply, thinking, "I'm sorry" is a far cry from the silence of before. After hanging up, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Once she'd thought that life had ended after the divorce. Now she realized that this was merely the beginning. Months passed. Alice rented a small studio apartment and continued her collaboration with Kevin, delving into fresh areas of design, engaging with a variety of clients. There were setbacks, conflicts, and demanding projects, but now Alice refused to give in. She knew that one can rise even after a crushing fall. One evening, returning from yet another negotiation, she found a bouquet of wildflowers and a note waiting on her desk. "You said you love simple bouquets. Sorry for the surprise. Michael?" Her heart raced wildly. Holding the bouquet close, inhaling the fresh scent of the fields, she couldn't help but smile. Suddenly, it all became clear. Every hardship, every fall had led her here. There was no point in endlessly mourning a past life lost. This life, new, forged through pain and collapse, was real, vibrant, filled with genuine emotions and genuine people. Alice stepped out onto the balcony. As dusk settled over the city and lights began to twinkle in windows, she silently thanked that bitter moment at the train station. For it was then, at the brink of destruction, that she discovered a chance to see everything anew. "I long to believe that everything will be different from now on," she whispered, hand resting over her heart. And in that quiet moment she felt an inner certainty, as if someone inside had answered, "Yes, now things will be exactly as you create them." Her journey from despair on that platform to the budding launch of her very own creative studio, which wasn't far off, taught her one irrefutable truth. It's never too late to start over if you have the courage to look within and the strength to move forward. No longer afraid of what tomorrow might bring, her eyes now sparkled with a fire of determination and a quiet joy, as if the lost soul had been found once more.